13 seasons ago now, when you arrive and, the as we're seeing a hurricane bearing down on the Florida Panhandle while we speak right now, Katrina had just ravaged the town. I'm wondering, and we're talking so much about Brees's shoulder and the decision that was going down with Miami and New Orleans. What was your first conversation with Drew Brees as head coach of the Saints? Was it involved in trying to get him there with his free agent process?
Yeah, I can remember specifically. Number one, we were at the Combine. It was the last day of the Combine. We found out that San Diego was making the decision to let him go. We were in a quarterback search mode at that point. We were looking closely at the quarterbacks in the draft, and also looking at a lot of quarterbacks that we felt might be able to hold the fort. Give us a few good years until we found the right guy. And so a lot was going on with us as an organization in the search for that position. When he became available, we spent some time. Obviously, the injury was something that we had to discuss. We felt that that there was some risk there, and yet it was worth investing in. So very quickly, we were involved in calling him. I can recall speaking to him. He was in Birmingham rehabbing with Andrews at the time. Meanwhile, Josh McCown was someone. Josh was actually on a flight to New Orleans after Drew had taken his visit. And once Drew had taken his visit and went from New Orleans, then he went on to Miami, and then the following week called and said he was coming to New Orleans. Josh was on a flight connecting somewhere in Charlotte or Atlanta when Drew had committed to us, and quickly we had to call him and say, hey, we're not going to have that opportunity available right now. But so there was a lot of digging going on relative to the position, but I think the feeling from our standpoint was there was going to be some risk. We had to take some risk with the idea that, on the back end, it could turn out to be something really, really good. I don't know that any one of us would have expected what's happened since.
It is amazing. It really is amazing how fragile those moments were and what a foundation you and Drew Brees have been able to build and build upon. At the time, Sean Payton here on the Rich Eisen Show, knowing it's your first shot at being an HC in this league like this, right? And knowing what system you wanted to bring and the scheme you wanted to bring, what did you see in Brees that you thought, this is my guy?
Well, there were 2 or 3 traits that you just couldn't ignore. Smart, tough, accurate. That had followed him, man, all through college. And you knew that he had the grit, some of those other essential things that were going to help him in his recovery and his rehab. In other words, if he couldn't recover from this shoulder injury, then it's probably likely that no one would have been able to, because it was something that there was no precedent relative to the injury he had. It wasn't like, well, he had an ACL. You hear the percentages, or he had an ankle or whatever. This was a fully torn rotator cuff shoulder injury for a right-handed passer. So all those intangibles, but the athleticism, the intelligence, and the accuracy, I think, were things that stood out. And the challenge for us was recruiting with a city that was still half in shambles.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.